welcome to our viewers. We are going to share our views with you on the topic, the role of India as a president of G20. G20's Presidentship of India has thrown bigger challenges on Modi government to present an inclusive and sustainable solution before the global community around the prevailing financial and economic problems. In the midst of Modi government's overemphasis over Atmanirbharta or Atmanirbhar Bharat program, overemphasis or extra emphasis or stronger emphasis on Atmanirbhar Bharat means Modi government has given higher and the highest priority for protectionist policy by sidelining the global economic and financial problems. Here, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam within the Gandhian and Nehruvian vision of India, the inclusive and secular India cannot escape itself from its responsibility to solve these global issues which are prevailing in present scenario. The global problems are the global supply constraint, the global energy crisis, the global consumption and investment crisis, etc. Out of rising global debt, rising global inflation rate, rising global interest rate, rising global unemployment rate, falling global trade, falling global GDP growth rate, and depreciating currencies of global community out of rising US dollar or out of a stronger US dollar in present financial volatile situation. The global debt has increased massively and it has touched by 300 trillion US dollar, and out of it the emerging markets debt has increased by 90 trillion US dollar, which makes around 65% of emerging market total GDPs. So far as India is concerned, here the debt has increased above to 90% in this year, while the government of India has already written off rupees 10 lakh crores since last 5 years, and it will create another debt problem on Indian economy, and Indian economy's debt is going to rise in the midst of rising global interest rate, rising debt or internal debt of India. The global inflation rate has also increased massively, and it has brought painful situation for our global consumers. The US inflation rate has remained around or above to 8%, while England's inflation rate has increased above to or around 11%, while India's inflation rate has remained above to 7% in this year. This is the situation, or out of it our global consumers had to suffer massively. The global interest rate has also increased massively. Here, one should note that global financial world has to follow the footprints of Fed Reserve's interest rate, where all global central banks had to follow the US Fed interest rate. And here, US Fed interest rate has increased by 450 basis points, while India's interest rate has increased by 225 basis points, while in England, Bank of England's interest rate has increased by 350 basis points in this year, while the European Central Bank has recently increased 50 basis points. In this situation, rising interest rate globally has brought cost of production higher, the borrowing cost higher, the consumers are suffering due to rising prices, and our investors and manufacturers are also suffering due to lack of consumption demand. This is the situation. In the midst of rising global unemployment rate, we see that in European nation as well as in England, the unemployment rate has increased massively, while in UK, the unemployment rate has remained around 5%, while in Indian context, the unemployment rate has remained above to 8% in this year. This is the situation, and rising unemployment rate has brought poverty, lower consumption demand, lower purchasing power, and inequality and poverty, inequality of income and malnutrition and poverty, etc. This is the situation. Global falling trade is another matter of concern for global economies. In the midst of rising global supply constraint and falling global trade, the World Trade Organization has said in its report that in this year, the global trade will be in a negative zone where it will remain around 1% from its expectation of 3.5%. This is the situation. While in Indian context, we see that the rising current account deficit around 4% is creating another trade problem, or it puts higher pressure on balance of trade. Here, exports have decreased or curtailed or has been lowered massively, while the import have increased massively at the cost of trade. And out of this, the current account deficit has also increased massively in this year. The global GDP growth rate has also massively declined, and when we pay attention towards the global GDP growth rate, where IMF has said that the global GDP growth rate is around 2.7% against its expectations of 3.2% in this year. While in Indian context, the World Bank has said that Indian GDP growth rate will remain around 6.9% from its earlier expectation of 7%. While IMF have also said that India's GDP growth rate will remain around 7%. While Asian Development Bank has also said that India's GDP growth rate will remain around 7%. While Reserve Bank of India has curtailed its GDP growth rate from 7% earlier to 6.8% for this year. While we pay attention towards the global rating agencies like Nomura and Moody's, we see that they have curtailed India's GDP growth rate by 4.7% and 4.8% respectively in 2023. This is the situation, and this falling global GDP growth rate has brought a peculiar financial and economic crisis before the global community. Here, lastly, we see that rising US dollar in the basket of greenback has also influenced global economy in a negative way, where currency has been depreciated. So far as Indian currency against US dollar is concerned, it has remained around or above rupees 82.5 per dollar. This is the situation. Out of this currency depreciation, India and other global economies are facing peculiar financial volatility, and their economy is being affected negatively. So in this situation, the need of hour is for Government of India to formulate or to present the roadmap before the global community for inclusive and sustainable monetary and fiscal policies in the present volatile financial situation and economic crisis. To tame or by taming the inflation rate, by taming the interest rate, so that the global community feel better in financial volatile situation, where the solution is before the India as a president of G20 to present such type of financial and economic solution before the world community, so that the world community should tame its inflation rate, its interest rate, and also try to boost up its consumption and investment rate in the midst of financial and economic global crisis. This is the situation. So the Modi government cannot escape from its responsibility to present such type of inclusive and sustainable economic solution through G20 or as a president of G20 before global community. This is my or our remarks against Modi government to present a inclusive and secular financial and economic solution before the world community, being as a president of G20. Thanks, a lot of thanks to our viewers.